Mr. Gena, welcome to the Aligned Founder podcast. How are you feeling?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Pleasure. We just did a little breathwork session just before. How was that for you?
Very good. It was relaxing this time. Very relaxing. Combined with a couple of deeper thoughts.
Mm-hmm. What came up?
What came up? It's a very actual or current topic. I've been at my parents' on the weekend, and we had on the 18th of February, so on Sunday, it was the 28 years that we moved to Germany. And of course this was kind of a topic, and we talked about it, and I recognized that my parents back then were exactly the age that I'm today. So they were 34, 35. I'm 35, and so this is why it was current, very present topic. And during the breathwork session, I was very emotional because recognizing how big of a move it was for them. It was like in '96, so after let's say the collapse of the Soviet Union, so they gave up everything and moved to Germany. And
Where did they come from?
From Russia.
From Russia?
From Russia, from Siberia. They decided to leave everything behind. They had good jobs, good education, and decided to leave the country to have a better life for their kids, so for my sister and me. My sister was 16, I was around 7, 8. So also a very challenging time. And and I felt how difficult it was for them. I mean, I recognize, of course, I was still very young, but during the session, I recognized it, and I was very thankful for it, that they took the decision and sacrificed on their own needs to provide basically for the children. And I was like, I had the very strong feeling of thankfulness, being here, being safe, being wealthy in terms of relationship, money, having safety in general, and that is not normal, I would say. And of course, I mean, today we live very connected, so I don't know, we are traveling all the time. If you're on Bali or in Berlin, you're always connected. Your friends might not even recognize that you're gone for a month, and then you come back, nothing changed.
You're still available on WhatsApp 24/7.
Exactly, or video calls and all the stuff. But back then, it was like you cut all relationships, you move, and then you're gone, you disappeared. Nobody knows whether you live or not. And if you want to contact your friends, back then we had to go to I don't even know how it's called, maybe like a kind of a post office, having a telephone booth, making an appointment. Then you pay like, I don't know, a significant amount of your salary to then have a call for 2 minutes where everybody say, do you hear me, do you hear me? And until the call starts, basically it's already over.
Yeah, wow.
So it's a different time, and thankful for this, that they, besides that, difficulties, decided to move and gave up everything.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be doing this podcast in Russian right now, I think.
Exactly.
Although you probably still could. Yeah. Still in there. That's epic. I love that. And I think we've done how many breathworks together now? Probably maybe 10 or so. 9 or 10. So you can probably start to recognize as well that each one is very different.
Yeah.
It's like some very physical, some very emotional, some very insights. What's been your most, we'll say, profound or favorite breathwork moment in the last 6 months?
I would say the beginning was very interesting because for me, I didn't spend time to understand what is breathwork basically before. And it was very new to me. I just heard from a couple of friends, okay, they did it, and they said it was crazy. And this excited me so much that I basically said, okay, I want to experience it, and let's go all in, not like just doing a small trial, but go to Bali and do like a 5 days breathwork retreat, or even longer, 6-7 days in total. And after the first session, I had the impression, or my reaction was, interesting. So there is something that is different to, let's say, a normal state, kind of. Mm-hmm. And there is something that I understand what the people are talking about, so very interesting. So just being very curious. And the second session was very powerful for me. It was very deep, many thoughts, and many realizations that my first reaction after basically I woke up kind of was I feel really stupid because I have overseen so many things for so many years, or maybe like not overseen but suppressed, whatever. You know? And I realized, and I thought, I'm just feeling stupid. Why didn't I see it like 5 years before or 6 years before or whatever? Like reliving a couple of personal situations, and this was like kind of the eye-opening moment for me.
Nice. Well, I think we'll get to maybe revisit that later, the experience in Bali and what emerged there. But before we get too deep into that, I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, kind of like the bullet points, what your profession or series of professions is, and what you do.
So yeah, as I mentioned, we moved to Germany, so I was young, and I would say, because we probably will come to this topic later, so that's why I'm giving the background. So my parents gave up everything to move here, and then I basically studied business at some point. They sacrificed and could finance everything so that the kids get the best education and everything that is possible. Yeah, and studied business and then started basically my own company with a friend of mine, and continued starting different companies. Yeah, so first one was kind of a platform for doctors appointments, and then it was financed like with investors, and at some point it was sold as well. And after that I started several companies, like 5, 6 I think. And the last company that we started with my friend again was an e-commerce company where we basically created brands and distributed it through our own shops and marketed it through social media. So during back the times, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and so on.
The dawn of the influencers.
Exactly. And worked a lot with influencers, and sold basically a lot of cosmetics products, nutrition products, fashion products. So the major stuff that is relevant in social media.
Yes.
And yeah, we started 2015, and it was like the boom, let's say, of social media. It was growing, everything was growing, and e-commerce was growing. And then 2020, during Corona, we sold the company. And I think like 1 year later, I left the company, and since then I'm basically supporting other entrepreneurs and help them building up businesses. Yeah. So this is my current profession.
The CV in 2 minutes. I love that. So yeah, so how would you define that role, or like the role that you play in supporting other entrepreneurs? Like, what are the skills that you bring, and how do you do that?
I think this changed. And interestingly, the last company was exactly the same what I'm doing now, but professionalized back then, because we hired more or less kind of entrepreneurs, or people that were incentivized by the success of the brands. And this was like inside the company, and now it's like all several companies, but also back then it was more like coaching entrepreneurs, helping them to solve issues or challenge their thoughts, being challenged on eye level. This is, I think, what is the most relevant one, yeah, because of, especially for single entrepreneurs, but also like if they're co-founders, it's very difficult to get an honest opinion on things, what they're doing, how they're doing, and being challenged on this. Somebody who is understanding the business as much, probably not 100% as much, but as much as they do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of very valuable and also very annoying for someone who wants to be in the positive mindset all the time, to have someone come in and poke all the holes, but it's super important. Speaking of challenges, what would you say, like in that journey you spoke about, from starting the first company all the way till 2020, having this exit, what would you say were the 3 biggest challenge moments for you along the way? The 3 moments that stand out as like, wow, that was a tough time.
I mean, for me, it was, I recognized a very strong necessity at some point to develop, because the business was growing very fast. And it was difficult for me to keep up. Yeah? So this is why my co-founder and me, we decided very early on to involve coaches to go through a personal journey, kind of, because we recognized, okay, it's outgrowing, so we need to keep up. So I would say major challenges were like inside. Yeah? For me, for example, what was very difficult is trust to other people, kind of. So trusting that somebody will solve it, and combination with delegating and, let's say, giving up of certain stuff, yeah? And not micromanaging. So this was very challenging for me.
Why do you think that was?
Why it was challenging for me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's probably very, or kind of typical young entrepreneurial problem, where you try to do everything on your own because you believe
everything,
because you believe you're the only one who can do it. Yeah? Until you at some point learn that even if it's not done 100% in the way you want, it's probably sufficient. Yeah? And connected to this, also understanding what is actually relevant and what is not relevant, and where should I being like very in control, let's say, and where I can just give it up, and agree or accept that it will be done not as I wish or as I would do it, but it will be done, solved, and it's okay. Yeah? And being relaxed with it, yeah? Not stressed by it.
What would be some key areas that you would never let go of, and what would be some that you'd be very happy to delegate now?
It's probably, I mean, if we go into, let's say, specific business areas, then it would be probably marketing, product. So like the key elements of what drives revenue and success. Yeah. So basically, what is my offer to the market, and how do I sell it, and how do I present it? So those areas where I would say I would definitely give it to somebody, but this is an area where back then I would like really hold on, but today I would be trying to be very close to it and still understand, like in many details, what is happening there. Everything else I would just give away.
Okay.
and accept that it somehow works. Yeah?
So you're very detached at this point. I'd imagine then you'd want to make sure that you're hiring the right people.
Exactly.
So how do you do that? What's your process for looking at who you can trust?
This was very difficult. I had the same question like a couple of days ago, how I actually chose the people, and was and whether we had, let's say, recruiting plan or specific questions that we asked. I personally never had something like this, so it was always more like seeing, do I believe the person fits into the company without any, let's say, kind of requirements. Yeah. So typically, I even didn't look before into the CV. Maybe just like looked through when the person was already sitting there. Yeah. Because at the end, it's all about mindset. And I tried always to evaluate, okay, what's the mindset of the person? And finally, I recognize, or I remember looking into our kind of HR system where we, so every new employee gets a number. Yeah? And then I recognized how many people we actually hired. And back then, I think I had 80 to 90% of the interviews or of the people we hired, I talked to one-on-one. And at some point, I remember we had like the employee number 1,000. And employee number 1,000 means they're like, probably, I don't know, what's the typical like, rate of interview to hire. It's like probably we interviewed like 5,000 people or 4, yeah. And a big chunk of those people I interviewed myself as well, at some point at least. Yeah? Of course, it gets less, but at the beginning, I remember like employing probably 200. Yeah? I talked to every person. Yeah?
Wow.
Because this is what was for us back then, for the co-founders, was very important. We said, okay, the success is defined by the people.
Yeah.
And this is what you cannot give up control of.
Yeah.
So marketing.
Hiring.
Marketing, product, and who's doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you ever wanted to start a recruitment agency, you'd probably be well, you've done your 10,000 hours. And come to me, what would be some of the if you think back to some of your kind of key or like the best hires that you had in that time, and maybe some of the worst, what would be some of the mindset pieces, as you said, that would stand out for someone who was like a great success, and what would be some of the no-nos? Yeah,
that's an interesting one. I tried to understand it myself, and I understood it's all about mindset. And what was very, or let's say, a pattern that I recognized in the people that were the best were the people that were in jobs before and they decided actively that they don't want it without having the next step. Yeah? So typically what I recognized talking to people, and they said, yeah, I want to become an entrepreneur and so on. But they always said, I don't want to give up my current safety in my job before I don't have something else. Yeah. And this is a pattern. Yeah? And the people that were like back then in our company were the most successful and the smartest people, let's say, or the most successful ones. They decided intentionally, I don't want this, and I want to do something else. And then they left, and then they looked for the next step. Yeah? And this was, of course, also for me back then very impressive, because okay, people think completely different. They say, okay, I understand, I don't want this, I want something else. I don't know yet what it will be, but I will find out, and being like confident that they will find a solution. Yeah. And this was a pattern that we had like out of probably 6, 7 top management people, we had 4 or 5 with this mindset. Yeah. I would call that personally like agency, which is this idea of like, I can do it, and believing, like having inner confidence or inner belief, which is more than just surface level confidence, like looking good online or something. It's actually like having the belief that you can go into like, maybe like your parents back in the day, going to a new country, not knowing anything and believing I can figure it out. You know, I think that really is a key ingredient for success in any field. Also relationships, also whatever you want to do in the world. So yeah, nice rabbit hole. We'll come all the way back up to the 3 most challenging moments. So that was one, which was the inner work, which brought you to this
doing some coaching around trusting others, and 2 other challenging moments along the way are the most, like, really, things got really hard.
It's a good one. I mean, all the years were very challenging. Yeah. For me, it was also very challenging to basically giving all the people the direction and transport. And this is what I had also to learn through coaching quite for a long time, is like transporting my thoughts or expressing my thoughts so clear and so often to people that they understand where I'm coming from, basically, in terms of why I take certain decisions, and have certain beliefs, and basically to give them the same mindset, kind of, or transmit this mindset, so that they can basically work on their own with the same beliefs and value system as I do. Yeah? So this was also definitely a process.
So what used to happen in the past when you maybe wouldn't communicate that as clearly?
At the beginning, it was easy and it was never a topic, because you tend to hire people that are exactly like you or think exactly like you. Yeah? But the more people you have,
Employee number 1,000.
exactly. Then I would say from employee number 20 or 25, 30, something like this, it starts being challenging, because then it's not a closed circle. Yeah, I remember the times at the beginning we were like a very close group, and even up until we were like, I don't know, 300 people in the office, this first circle of 20 people was very, very close, because they knew each other from the beginning, and they were always aligned. Yeah. But of course, at some point, if you get bigger and bigger, then you need to systemize it, and then you need to over-communicate and talk to everybody, and have like kind of, I don't know, systems that thoughts and decisions are transported to all the people. This was challenging, yeah. But at the beginning, it's not necessary at all, or it shouldn't be necessary, because you hire people like, they are similar like you. But then at some point, you also need to diversify. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it doesn't make sense if everybody says yes and amen to you, then it's basically
Factory of clones.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so like learning how to like distribute this message amongst the team.
Yeah.
And then what was the third kind of most challenging, we'll say, moment? Can also be like a certain point in time when you felt like things were really stacked up against you.
Yeah. I mean, during the deal times, probably it was challenging because there was like, you're talking to so many potential investors. It costs you so much time. You know that most of the time that you spend will be useless, yeah, because at the end there will be probably one person or one buyer or one investor, whatever. But at the same time, you have to keep up with the business, yeah, and keep everybody happy, and taking care that revenue comes in, that costs are low, and so on. Yeah, so basically meeting all the targets without having enough time for it. Yeah.
So that you can sell it to the people that you're spending all the time trying to talk to.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's like balancing everything at the same
Juggling
time.
act, yeah.
And then, it's very tough.
Yeah. Why did you decide to become an entrepreneur or to start making companies?
Probably out of fear, I would say.
Great. It's a great way to start anything.
Probably out of fear. Because of that, this is what I meant at the beginning, that my parents left Russia, moved to Germany, gave everything up. I don't know, my mother started as a cleaning lady, my father started unloading trucks at a shop, yeah, although both had studied. But back then also that wasn't recognized, like the
degree or whatever,
the degrees and the certificates and so on. So yeah, but basically they started from the bottom, and I think this developed like a very big fear of, I don't want to be in this situation in the future, and I want to have it better, yeah, for everybody,
yeah.
For my parents, for my sister, for myself, for my kids at some point, yeah. I said, okay, it's somehow unfair, or it felt for me unfair, and I don't want to be in this situation again.
Yeah.
And I think this was like the driver, let's say. At some point, finally with my co-founder, we had, it was like the late 90s probably, or no, it was early 2000, but there was like 50 Cent with his album, and it was like our kind of motto where we said, okay, get rich or die trying, yeah, because we thought it's the only possibility, yeah. Yeah, and later on I recognized it was very driven by fear, yeah.
Yeah. We talked before about this analogy of the cat and the cheese, and this idea of like they did this experiment where they, you know, put a mouse in a trap in a science lab, and they put the smell of cheese in, and they measure how hard or how fast it runs, and then they do another experiment where they waft in the smell of a cat from behind it. And actually the one where they have the cat, well actually when they have both the cat and the cheese, the mouse runs much harder than if it only has the cheese. So this idea of that, like, we can have a goal or something that we want to work towards, but actually using fear as a motivation to get us also to where we want to go is a much more powerful driver. So it sounds like that was kind of not wanting to fall back into that place you'd come from was powerful enough to push forward.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm sure there's probably other, you know, entrepreneurs or founders listening who can probably resonate to some degree of like, yes, wanting to have this big goal, but also maybe wanting to move away from something. Now, what would you say were some of the negative effects or negative consequences or side effects of, in some way, being driven by fear? Like, were there some kind of dark sides to that maybe had a negative impact along the way?
Yeah, I think what is very difficult if you are driven by fear is the fear of failing, because, and I know there's this whole trend of saying, yeah, failing is good and so on. I totally understand it, and it's also a good trend, yeah, but if you're in this situation and you are failing and your fear is that you fall back into your old life, kind of,
then a hashtag won't save you.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very difficult thought, yeah. And I had also this situation because I started a couple of businesses, yeah, and I mean, a couple of them were like medium successful, and some of them failed. And I remember the time where you're then sitting and you recognize, okay, it's falling apart. It will probably not work. What is like a very typical feeling for an entrepreneur, yeah. And then you start thinking, what will happen if it fails? Yeah? And probably, for me, it was the case. I started to suppress the situation that it's not an option that it will happen.
Yeah.
And I think this is normal. Yeah? I don't think that you can say, yeah, okay, if I fail, then it's a learning and so on. Of course, you can tell you. But once you are in this situation, it will be very tough.
It's easy to do that 3 years later when you already had success again.
Exactly. Or it's also easy if you see somebody, then telling the person, okay, if you fail, see it as a learning, just stand up and do it again.
And then you
but if you do it like for 5 times or 6 times, and this thought of, okay, when is the moment that you decide that you will not be successful and go back and search for a corporate job, let's say. This feeling I was really scared by this.
Yeah. What would that have meant if you had to leave that life and go back and just get a typical job?
It's like completely failing, like failed in life for me.
Yeah.
And so this is why it was get rich or die trying, because it was not an option. Yeah? It was, if you, I looked into the spectrum, what are my possibilities, this was not an option. Yeah.
Do you think there's some degree, and that's maybe not just for you back then, but also other founders, that there's some degree of like self-worthiness tied up in that outcome of like, I need to succeed so I can feel enough?
Sure. So this is what I would say the second driver was for me is, so first one, fear of having not enough or being in this, let's say, situation where, everything is just difficult. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the second part for me was always the desire to belong to some group of people or society, a certain level of society and so on. Because this is, I mean, today it's even worse. Through social media, because you recognize, okay, you open Instagram and then you see Mykonos and Ibiza and Miami and all this stuff, and everybody is like doing crazy stuff and driving big cars.
Everyone's successful.
Like everybody is successful, but also in a level where you think, okay, crazy. This is not like I have a very well-paid job. It's like I have millions and I do whatever I want, or boats and whatever. And I remember back then it was for me a very strong desire to belong to this group as well.
Yeah.
Because,
why was that?
Because I thought if I belong to this group, then I will be happy.
Yes.
And
how did that go?
I will be happy and everything will be fine. You don't have any problems, right? Because you have all the stuff.
Yeah.
And this was also interesting. So once we sold the company and everything was possible exactly to live the lifestyle, basically, and you start then experiencing all the stuff you see, and then you recognize, okay, it's not that.
It's not doing much for me.
No, exactly. Yeah, you recognize it's not giving you this feeling that you expected all your life, or I expected all my life, that I will have once I reached it, and it was not there. Tell
me about the Ferrari.
Yeah. So back then I I never had a car. I always were driving like the car from my father, and I never needed it. And I always said, yeah, my first car will be a Porsche. Yeah? And then like many years passed, and then I had a small Smart in Berlin, because it was
very practical.
It's very practical and easy to find parking space and so on. But I always had the desire, okay, I want to have a racing car once I have money. Yeah. So, and once we sold the company, I went with Björn, my co-founder. We went to a car dealer, did like looked at a couple of racing cars, and then I bought a Ferrari. Yeah? 488 Spider, so like a proper kind of racing car, yeah. And then I got it, and then I think it had like 2,000 kilometers, so it wasn't new, but like 1 year old. And I think 3 years later, when I sold it, it had 4,000 kilometers. Yeah? Because every time I went into the garage, I looked at my Smart, and then I looked at the Ferrari. I thought, where do I go? Will I find some parking? It's very painful, yeah. Then you're standing at the red lights, and everybody's watching at you. It's really loud, yeah. And then I always chose the Smart. At some point, the Electro Smart. And then I decided, okay, let's sell it. Because I recognize, okay, it gives you like a good feeling for maybe a month, probably, or 2 maximum. Yeah. But then at some point, you get used to it, and then it's nothing special, and then it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. What I think is really funny is this concept of like the Ferrari effect, which is where people see someone driving a Ferrari and they say, like, wow, I wish I could have that. That person's probably so happy. They're so great.
That was me.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when you actually get it and driving it, it's like people are looking at you, but they're not looking at you saying, wow, you're so great. They're imagining themselves in your place.
And I was the person looking at the people in the Ferrari, yeah.
Yeah.
I also remember once, also a funny story, that we were, I don't know, we were driving from on the Autobahn somewhere from A to B, not relevant, but, and then we stopped at a McDonald's, and there was a guy who got out of his car, and it was like a luxury car for, I don't know, 200,000 probably back then, yeah. And he had a like suit, and then we went to the guy and asked him what he's doing for his living, yeah? And then he said he's like a CFO of a mid-sized company and blah blah blah. And I thought, nice, this is what I want to be, you know. So yeah, it was always very impressive, yeah?
Sure.
But once you're there, then it loses all the sparkles, let's say.
That's quite disheartening for someone who's maybe building their company with the dream of selling it to buy a Ferrari.
Yeah, maybe they should find out what is driving them to to have this as a goal. Yeah.
Were there any other, just while we're on the topic, I'm enjoying this, were there any other moments like that where you did something where you thought, okay, this is going to be, I waited that like a long time for this is going to be the moment that I feel great, and then afterwards realizing that experience or that purchase or something was actually not really what it was cracked up to be, or what society cracked it up to be?
Yeah, I think the Ferrari was the most obvious one, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, there is always the temptation to do it again. But then you start thinking it, and then you recognize, okay, it's probably only a feeling for a month, and then it's gone again. No, besides that, I think that was my learning, where I said, okay, if I buy it, that will give me like happiness or whatever.
Yeah.
Then I recognized it and I learned. Yeah. Besides that, yeah, I think the problem of human nature is that you get used to everything. Yeah, so you get used to the positive things, but you also get used to the negative things. So it is sometimes can be very positive to get used to negative things. Yeah. So yeah, but this is the problem. So you probably need, and we had also many talks about it, that you need kind of both sides of the spectrum to enjoy the one side of the spectrum.
Sure. If you only ever eat cake, then you're not going to enjoy cake.
Exactly. That's the issue, yeah. And I think this is with everything in your life, yeah.
For sure. So in the absence of the Ferrari not bringing eternal happiness forever, what was the process then of, after that exit, the process of like maybe looking, okay, what else is there? What was your process around that?
Yeah, my process was then trying to understand where is the happiness. Yeah, so where is the feeling that
they lied to me.
Exactly. Everybody lied to me. Society lied to me. Where is my happiness with achieving, let's say, the goal that everybody has, or most of the people have, yeah, in the system. And then I started to, trying to understand why did I do this, what is it for, what do I change, what I don't change, and so on. And for me, it wasn't like a crazy journey, but and I know people that go through a much deeper journey for this to find it out. But I started like connecting to people that are in a very similar situation, because it's very difficult, of course, to find people to talk about those kind of problems that other people wouldn't see as a problem. Yeah. And then also did experience kind of like psychedelics, like guided psychedelic retreats, and then basically also tried meditation, tried breathwork now, and doing psychedelics again. So this is where I then try to get deeper into me and find it out, because also as an entrepreneur, over time you learn how to navigate through all the up and downs. And I would say for at least most people that I know, it works through suppressing. Suppress everything, and then at some point, like all your up and downs until it becomes flat.
Yeah.
And then you don't have any feelings, basically. Yeah. Then something exciting in the business happens.
Stimulation.
You think, nice, but you already know tomorrow something shit will happen and will go down again, and then vice versa. Yeah. So at some point you are not excited by the highs, and you are not that angry about the lows, and then it's basically flat. And I think through meditation, breathwork, psychedelics, all other stuff in this area, or I found that I can get access to. Yeah.
So like re-unlocking that spectrum of emotions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And understanding that it's suppressed.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be there. It was at some point there, but then it was like gone.
Yeah. Well, okay, so it's very easy for you to sit here now having unlocked that and kind of explored that now. But how would you, if you were going to speak to yourself maybe 2-3 years ago and try to communicate that information based on where you were at that time, this feeling of flatness, like, would you think you would have recognized that you were feeling flat, or how would you have identified that? So that you could help yourself see where you are?
I would say I recognized it already back then, but it was very functional for me.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of maybe built not intentionally, but I built it kind of for me, like a system that worked, suppressing it and being flat. And I knew it, that it is flat, because I recognized, and we had many talks with also different or other entrepreneurs where we said, at some point you get used to all the up and downs, and then you just ignore it, and you just function and go through, and you accept it. So it was clear for me.
And so what's the kind of the dark side of that? Because I'd imagine that's not something that just disappears overnight then when you end up leaving the company or having an exit.
Yeah, I mean, you give a significant portion of, let's say, life quality to this. So, of course, you cannot, if you're flat in business, it also transforms or transports into your personal life as well, and then everything nothing is exciting anymore. Because you always know, something different will happen, and then I'm not excited anymore. So you basically give up on quality of life.
One thing that I commonly hear then for people in that situation is that one thing they can feel, or the only thing they can feel, is then stimulation. So then chasing kind of more peak experiences, or kind of doing maybe some crazy things in order to just have an experience of something. Would that have been your experience?
Yeah, and also for many people that I know. Yeah. I think it's also normal, and I mean, if you don't exaggerate, then it's also something that probably is fine, But this is why I think many successful entrepreneurs do kind of crazy sports or extreme sports, where they are searching or looking for the next kick.
Yeah. Could also be partying or
exactly
something like that. Or could also, of course, translate into doing business in a more kind of rogue way, a bit less methodical, a bit more reckless, maybe. What would you say then were some of the downsides or the dark sides then in, like, after selling the company? Like, how did you feel your quality of life was because of that flatness? Like, what was some of the, let's say, behaviors or the things that were happening that made you think, I need to look at a new way? How did you recognize that?
Yeah, what I recognized is then, I mean, although everything kind of was flat by suppressing, but the, let's say, roller coaster at work was basically gone. Of course, you have this up and downs every day. And then the company was gone, and then, let's say, everything that was in the company that created those kicks was not happening anymore. And then I started questioning, like, everything. What do I do next? Why I'm doing this? All the relationships I have, all my love relationship. So all the stuff that I'm surrounded by, I started questioning. And it's like turning every stone around and then looking at what's behind, and is it necessary? Is it not necessary? Should I change something about it? Because this, let's say, excitement or this busyness is gone.
And so what was your final kick then in the inspiration to come over to Bali and to do some breathwork retreat together?
Yeah, I think the desire to answer it, what's next and why I'm doing this and all the questions, because I recognize it's not easy to just answer, yeah, and maybe also the bridge to, I did also, after we sold the company, I did like coaching kind of, and tried to find, let's say, what do I want to do, yeah, in my life.
Yeah.
You know, it's a play through the game of life kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the system and what's next, why I'm doing this. And I had coaching for exactly this point. And I found an answer, yeah, and it was a very rational answer back then for me, because the answer was, okay, it's not about the goal, it's about the way kind of, yeah. And I thought, okay, if you open up like 100 books about self-development and purpose of life, and then like out of 100 there will be 95 books writing you it's not about the goal, or it's about the way, yeah? And I thought that's kind of bullshit. I understand it and somehow it makes sense, but I don't feel it, yeah? And this is why I continued to looking for the answer, and tried psychedelics because of this to also find the answer, yeah. And after that, I decided to breathwork to basically go deeper into this, because I at least understood back then or heard that it is very similar. Yeah? And psychedelics was for me quite, I would say, if I compare it, it's more random than breathwork. Yeah? So you go in and then something happens you cannot control, what is also good, because I think for people who want always to have control, yeah, for them it's a very good shortcut to just eliminate this control, because you're not possible.
You don't have a choice.
Exactly, you don't have a chance to have control about it. Also, of course, can also have the downsides, yeah. But the positive part was that I got the same answer, but I felt it. Yeah? I felt it with my whole body, and I thought, why I did ask myself, because it's so obvious. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was very powerful. Yeah. And still, what is interesting with psychedelics is it's very present in this moment, and it's very present like the day after and maybe a couple of days after, but then it fades out and then you forget, more or less. Yeah? It's like a portal that gets closed. Yeah?
Yes.
Smaller, 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 and if you don't keep it up opening, yeah, then it basically disappears and then it's gone, and then you are stuck in your life.
I forgot it ever happened.
Exactly. Then it was like a dream. Yeah. And so yeah, I thought, okay, it's also not a solution to do like psychedelics every couple of weeks. Yeah. So what to do? And then I heard about breathwork, and this is where I believe, okay, this is like a kind of a combination of psychedelics and normal, yeah, where you then experience a state, altered state, where you then can have a journey that is more controlled and experience, let's say, topics that you are interested by. Yeah? And I decided to go to Bali because I then said, okay, somehow I know the answers, but what do I need to change and how to implement it? And my hope was that breathwork is basically easier to understand or answer things and then implement it as well.
Nice. And so how was that process for you? Because, you know, we spent a couple of days together in this retreat style. So how was the flow of that experience for you, and what were the main kind of, like, in terms of how we did it? Because we kind of did this in the morning meeting, doing kind of like a conversation coaching thing, and later going into the breath work and exploring some of the topics we'd uncovered. So how did that format work for you in kind of combining these different worlds, the coaching stuff with also this more altered state?
So for me, And I told you that, let's say, first the experience of breathwork, where I said the first session was kind of interesting. The second one was I felt stupid because overseeing so many things.
Yeah.
So let's say a couple of outcomes for me where I understood that, or not differently. So I would say that before I thought that many things that I'm not happy about are influenced externally, or basically are external factors that I have to change. Yeah. So I don't know, you're not happy with something, so you need to change it, and then it's gone, and then replaced by something better, probably. Yeah. And you can transform it to anything. You can transform it to your friends, you can transform it to your business, you can transform it to your love relationship, to everything. Yeah. And I thought it's kind of external, and it's either A or B, yeah? Good or bad, yeah? Or normal, whatever. Like on a rating system, yeah. And the second session where I said, okay, I'm feeling stupid, I recognized that what's probably very obvious for me right now, yeah, that it's not an external factor, but it's something I have completely control of, yeah. And this is why I said, okay, I feel stupid not seeing it for the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, because I were not happy with the situation, but I was always thinking that it's the external factor and I do not have any influence. And there I understood, okay, I need to change my behavior, I need to change how I think about it.
Yeah.
And then also the other behavior of the other people I'm in contact with, or my love relationship, this will change as well. That gives me then again the better feeling that I'm actually looking for.
Yeah.
So it's like a loop. Yeah?
Yeah, new feedback loop kind of thing.
Exactly. And this is what was not clear for me. Yeah? Looking back at this, very obvious. But understanding this and knowing this is very powerful, because then you understand that you're not a passive
victim, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You are not a victim of, let's say, your situation, but you are completely in control of. But you have to take the decision to take control of.
Yes.
And you have to change it first, and then everything else will change. And if it doesn't change, then you can think about replacing. But if you don't behave how you think is necessary, the feedback loop cannot be closed.
And that again sounds like, again, rationally makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure someone listening to this can probably say, of course, I get that. However, how did your life actually change as a result of that? Because that could easily be an insight we had in like a coaching session, but how did things actually change?
Exactly. And exactly, this is what I meant with through coaching, I were able to answer certain things, and it felt like, okay, it makes sense, rationally makes sense. And of course, I would say a very rational person, not an emotional person. And through those sessions, I could feel the answers. Yeah, I of course you think through the process, but you at the same time feel it, and then you don't question the answer anymore because you feel it with your whole body. Yeah, and then it is the right answer for me. Yeah. And you don't question it, because everything that is rational, you answer it, you are always not sure whether it's the real answer or not, because of course you looked at it and you had a couple of questions asked, and then
can see it in different ways.
Exactly, you can do a pros and cons and so on. Yeah, so then you find a solution, but you don't feel it. And in breathwork, I felt it, and then it was for me like just clear, and I didn't question it.
Yeah. I would call this, or it's also been called by different kind of clients, as the inner compass or the inner metal detector. So having this feeling of like truth in the body, and when you feel it, it's just undeniable. And then it's just, even if the actions that need to be taken are challenging, like for instance, I'll give you an example. I had a situation with an ex-girlfriend that, logically, rationally in the situation, it made sense, it was all good, and we're working through it. And then I really, after going deep, I realized that actually this situation is not good for me. And I felt it deeply, it was true. Now, the actions I needed to take were very challenging afterwards, but it gave me the courage to do it because I knew that it was what needed to happen, you know, because I felt it as the truth. So what I find is that being able to connect to that deeper truth in the body and feeling it is kind of like, yeah, it gives that energy to go forward and do what needs to be done, even if every other part of the body is saying, no, don't do it. You're crazy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and also the bridge here to where I would say coaching is like very rational. Psychedelics is very, you might question whether it's you know, because you're like completely, it's like in a different universe.
Yeah.
And with breathwork, you're in between. You don't take any substance, and you're still somehow rational, emotional, and you don't question it whether it's your thoughts or the substance, you know?
Yes.
So this is why I also believe it's much easier to integrate, yeah? Because it's still your conscious you. Yeah?
How do you think your process and journey of, you know, from the first companies to the exit, how do you think that process would have been different if you had access to these tools back then? Or would you have even wanted to explore them back then?
Probably no. I wouldn't take the time for it. And actually, I mean, of course, I don't have the real answer how it would be, yeah, but probably my fear today would be that if I would have discovered it before, I wouldn't do this.
You wouldn't?
No, I wouldn't do I wouldn't do all the entrepreneurial journey maybe. Like suffer and taking all the pain, yeah, in achieving something that probably it's not what I want, you know. So yeah, but I don't have the answer. Maybe I would just have more, let's say, access to my emotions and understanding that it doesn't need to be, everything needs to be flat, yeah? And also maybe lead in a better way. But I don't know, maybe I would have just decided, okay, I don't need this shit. It will not give me happiness. Let's do something different, yeah?
Yeah. What would you have done?
I don't know.
It's interesting because like my lens on it is that one strategy, of course, which a lot of people go to is just completely numb out and just push to get to some result. And then once they get there, realizing it didn't get them what they want and then figure it out, you know? I think for us with the company and the way we're approaching this is that like it's possible to actually enjoy maybe even the journey and to do it in a way that's more integrated and balanced, you know, that's not just this like completely numb, flat out, like where almost like years of life are disappearing, you know. And also that the fears are still present. It's not that there's no fear, but that there's a much clearer why behind it, which is actually driving. So I like to think of it like when you're driving off a future outcome or fear, it's basically like burning fuel in your car. You're putting a lot of fuel in the car. It's not very efficient versus being powered off like a deeper why or purpose. And then it's like a Tesla battery. Then it's like self-charging, self-generating, and every day receiving energy and receiving like, this boost from doing something in a way that's aligned, you know, with this truth, the deeper feeling in the body and moving towards that outcome. And it's almost like every step towards that goal doesn't feel like you're pushing and trying to get harder, but you're receiving energy with every step. That at least has been my experience of like building something that's aligned with my core values. So that would be maybe something for the new business, whatever that is.
Yeah. So probably my answer to this would be I wouldn't then probably sell cosmetics or nutrition products to people through social media.
Yeah.
So it was a clear, let's say, tool for me to get to the, let's say, result of freedom, safety, and so on. I achieved this with sacrifice and, of course, fun, a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
But it was not enjoyable if you were in the moment. Yeah? It was fun, but it was not you were enjoying it all the time and you know why you're doing it. And it has like kind of a bigger purpose for me and for the world or whatever. So yeah, I would reconsider this probably.
Nice.
Would it change all the way? Probably yes. Would like to do this looking like back? Then probably no.
Yeah. So on that basis then, with all the information you have now, with the tools and the new insights, what would you say is next for you on this path?
Still searching for it.
Yeah, we have a few more sessions to go.
Still searching for it. What is next? But I think what I at least found for me right now is that I want to support other entrepreneurs who are going through a similar journey, let's say, and helping them of having a better ride than I had, or smoother ride, better say. And enjoying it. Working with people I enjoy spending time with, and working with businesses that are somehow, let's say, cognitive challenging. So where I learn something and not just doing the same again and again and again.
Yeah. What are some of the projects that you're working on currently that are exciting to you?
I mean, I have, let's say, 3-4 projects that I'm working with, and they are completely unrelated to each other. Or somehow, 2 are in e-commerce, selling basically very similar business model that I did before. So those are, let's say, not that challenging, but probably useful. One business is all around like retail sales. So that means we create products and then place it in retail stores, but also like in different categories and different markets. This has just started. And then another business that was, let's say, more in crypto at some point, crypto gaming. It was a wild, let's say, idea to start it back then, during the hype circle kind of. And now we pivoted it and are searching for a new model, what is very exciting for me because now we have, let's say, a proper team with tech people and business people, very small. There is a lot of money and therefore like time to find a working business model. And this is what, let's say, also excites me a lot in kind of finding ways to crack the system. Cracks the system in terms of find a business model that works. And this is like the, let's say, project that I'm spending the most time with.
Nice.
Because the other projects are quite straightforward. It's clear what to do. It's just a matter of priorities and so on. But I like, let's say, challenges where it's you have a white piece of paper and then you have like all the possibilities, and this is the challenge.
And finally then, what advice would you give to someone who's kind of in the first year or two of their startup? They just started out and they're kind of in that initial pain phase, getting things off the ground, and really with this greater goal in mind. What's maybe 3 pieces of advice you would give to them?
Like general entrepreneurial success advices.
Sure. As generic as you can get. I would say from your experience.
From my experience. So what I recognize where most of the people are stuck with, is the mindset. So I think so probably there is one advice, not 3. But the most common problem of all the people I worked with is they are having too many assumptions. So it's of course important to also have confidence, because if you don't have confidence, you shouldn't start a business.
Sure.
Like a certain idea that you believe in. But it should be confidence, but not a belief in something where you think, okay, this needs to be true because this is my belief. And this is, I think, where most of the people are stuck. They have certain assumptions that are not valid or not proved, and they work on those assumptions for too many hours in too long time. Yeah? And it's probably also, in many times I was recognizing it was driven by ego, probably. Yeah? So because they are afraid to be wrong, for example.
Yeah.
And they attach themselves to the assumption. So they think that if this assumption is wrong, then I'm wrong.
I'm wrong, yeah.
Instead of saying, okay, this is my assumption, I'm confident that it's right.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's test it. And then if it doesn't prove to be right, then I have two other assumptions where I have maybe less confidence, but I don't know. And let's find out. And that's the problem. This is what most of the people are held by.
It's interesting because I think probably for a new founder stepping into a field, it could be that maybe they've never started a company before. They might come from a different background and feel like they've got certain things they've learned through maybe a corporate job or something, or through business school, that maybe they apply to that world. And because of their lack of knowledge or their ignorance in that field, they kind of need to assume a lot of things. But then, as you said, their own maybe fear of being inadequate or not being worthy or enough, or the fear of failing, might then bleed into the fact why they cling to those beliefs maybe, and are rigid. So it sounds like then a flexible mindset and a strong sense of self to be wrong or to maybe not get it right, but then to know that that's not in any way attached to your own worthiness.
Yeah, this is what we also recognize when, let's say, interviewing people from corporate jobs that stayed there like 8 or 10 years. To find people that understand that what they did for the last 10 years, for example, is just one way to do it.
Yeah.
And being very flexible to see it completely different in terms of saying, okay, I know I did it for the last 10 years the way I did it, but I'm completely open to just say, okay, it was all the time it was wrong, or there is a better way or a different way to do it.
Yeah.
And this is very tough to find. Yeah. This is why at some point we said, okay, if somebody's spent time too long in one company, then it's not an option, because then you need more time or more investment in getting this out again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Getting this mindset out that it is maybe not the right way.
Yeah, it's kind of like you grew up in a very small country town.
Exactly.
And you believe that that's how the world is, and you never travel, you never meet anyone else.
Exactly.
And therefore you think, well, that's it.
Yeah. So always good to challenge, let's say, the own things that you do and things that you learn, and ask yourself whether it's the only way or there's maybe a different path as well.
Yeah. Great advice. Not generic. I like it. Gena, thank you so much for joining me today. If someone wanted to reach out, get in touch with you, how might they find you?
They find me very easy on LinkedIn, Gennadi Tschernow.
Nice.
Just reach out.
I'll put it on the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining me
Thank you very
today.
much.